The Great Hall of Veranik Station was built to make visitors feel small. Its ceiling rose so high that clouds sometimes formed near the top. Its walls were made of black stone brought from dead worlds. Every species that entered this place understood the same message. You are nothing compared to the powers that rule the stars. Matriarch Selvan Kethnora stood at the center of the hall. She was tall and thin, with skin the color of pale silver. Her eyes were completely black, like two pools of ink set into her narrow face. She had lived for over 800 years, and every moment of those years showed in the way she carried herself. She moved like she owned the universe. Around her stood representatives from dozens of species. There were the Morvathi with their 4 arms and heavy bodies. There were the Silith, floating in their water tanks. There were the Dren, whose bodies were made mostly of light. All of them watched the matriarch with respect or fear. Most watched with both. The human delegation stood near the back of the hall. There were only 12 of them. They wore simple gray uniforms. They carried no weapons that anyone could see. Compared to the other species, they looked almost boring. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood at the front of the human group. She was a small woman with dark hair and calm eyes. She had been chosen to speak for Earth at this summit. She had been warned that the Kethvari did not think much of humanity. She had been told to expect insults. She had not expected what came next. "Let us address the matter that troubles this council," the matriarch said. Her voice filled the entire hall without effort. "The humans wish to join our agreements. They wish to trade with us. They wish to be treated as equals." She paused. A small smile appeared on her silver face. "Look at them," she said. "These creatures live for less than a century. Their bodies break easily. Their minds cannot touch the deeper currents of thought. They have existed among the stars for barely 200 years, and already they demand a seat at our table." Some of the other species shifted uncomfortably. The Morvathi ambassador looked down at the floor, but no one spoke against the matriarch. No one ever did. "The Kethvari Empire has ruled for 10,000 years, the matriarch continued. "Our bloodlines have been pure since before these humans learned to make fire. We do not mix with lesser species. We do not pretend that all life is equal. Some creatures are born to rule, others are born to serve, and some are simply born to fade away." She turned to face the human delegation directly. Her black eyes found Elena Vasquez. "You are genetic refuse," the matriarch said. "Your blood is chaos. Your lives are brief flickers of light that mean nothing. Go back to your small world. Grow your crops, have your short lives, but do not come here and pretend you belong among the stars." The hall was completely silent. Every eye watched the human ambassador. Everyone waited for her response. Elena Vasquez smiled. She did not argue. She did not defend humanity. She simply smiled, as if the matriarch had told a joke that only she understood. The matriarch frowned. This was not the reaction she had expected. She had expected anger or tears or desperate pleas for acceptance. She had not expected this quiet confidence. "You have nothing to say?" the matriarch asked. "Nothing that would change your mind today," Elena replied. Her voice was soft but clear. "But time has a way of changing everything, even minds that have stayed the same for 10,000 years." The matriarch laughed. It was a cold sound like ice cracking. "Time is our ally, human, not yours. We will still be here when your great-grandchildren are dust." Elena nodded politely. "We shall see." Standing behind Elena was a man named Marcus Cole. He was tall and broad, with gray at his temples and old scars on his hands. He had been a soldier once. Now he was a scientist who studied alien life. He had been sent on this mission for reasons that were not entirely clear to him. But as he watched the scene before him, he began to understand. He saw the matriarch's eldest daughter standing behind her mother. Her name was Kethsera, and her hands were shaking, not from anger, from fear. Marcus had studied enough alien body language to recognize the signs. He saw the servants who stood along the walls. They were HFY too, but their skin was darker, their bodies smaller. Lesser bloodlines, he realized, born to serve. Their eyes were empty in a way that troubled him deeply. He saw the younger HFY nobles trying to hide their exhaustion. Some of them looked sick. Some of them looked like they were barely holding themselves together. The HFY Empire presented itself as perfect, eternal, unchanging, but Marcus could see the cracks beneath the surface. He could see that something was very wrong. The summit continued for 3 more days. The humans were given a small role in minor trade agreements, nothing important. The Matriarch made sure everyone knew that humanity was being tolerated, not accepted. On the last night, Marcus walked through the lower levels of the station. He liked to explore. He liked to see things that others missed. He found a small garden hidden behind a service corridor. And in that garden, he found a young HFY woman sitting alone in the dark. She was crying. Marcus knew he should leave. Contact with HFY outside of official meetings was forbidden, but something made him stay. "Are you hurt?" he asked. The woman looked up. Her silver face was wet with tears. Her black eyes widened when she saw what he was. "You are human," she said. "You should not be here." "Neither should you, from the look of it." She stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly she wiped her eyes. "My name is HFY," she said. "I am the Matriarch's granddaughter. I am Marcus Cole. I am nobody important." HFY almost smiled at that. Almost. "My grandmother would say all humans are nobody important." "Your grandmother says a lot of things." This time HFY did smile. It lasted only a second. Then the sadness returned. "I should go," she said, "if anyone sees us talking." "Then go," Marcus said. "But whatever is hurting you, whatever is making you cry alone in the dark, know this. There are people who would help if you let them." HFY stood and walked past him. At the door she stopped. "Humans live such short lives," she said quietly, "and yet you still offer help to strangers. Why?" Marcus thought about the question. "Because sometimes," he said, "a short life teaches you not to waste time on hatred." She left without another word, but Marcus saw her look back once before she disappeared into the corridor. He did not know it then, but that conversation would change the galaxy forever. HFY had known the truth about herself for 3 years. She had learned it in the cold room where the blood keepers worked, the ones who tested every member of the noble bloodlines for weakness. She had stood there, her arms still bleeding from where they had taken their samples, and listened to them tell her she was dying. The fade, that was what they called it, a sickness that lived in the blood passed down through the generations. It made the body turn against itself slowly, painfully. There was no cure. There never had been. The HFY had been dying of it for thousands of years. But no one spoke of it. No one admitted it existed, because the fade was proof that the sacred bloodlines were not perfect. It was proof that all those centuries of keeping the blood pure had created something broken. Those who carried the fade were given a choice. They could die quietly in private with honor, or they could be killed openly as a warning to others. Most chose to die quietly. HFY had chosen to live as long as she could in secret, hiding her symptoms behind makeup and medicine and pure will. She had 2 years left, maybe less. But 3 weeks ago, everything had changed. Her daughter Valeth, only 8 years old, had been tested, and the results had come back positive. HFY had not slept since then. She had not eaten. She had spent every moment searching for something, anything, that might save her child. The HFY doctors could offer nothing. The ancient texts spoke only of acceptance and honor. There was no hope to be found in 10,000 years of HFY wisdom. So when her ship was forced to stop at a human outpost for emergency repairs, HFY found herself thinking about the man she had met in the garden, the human who had offered help to a stranger. Humans were supposed to be inferior. Their medicine was supposed to be primitive. But Kethliera had done research during the long nights when sleep would not come. She had learned that human medicine had cured diseases that other species had given up on. She had learned that humans approached problems differently, willing to try things that more advanced civilizations considered impossible or improper. She told herself she was just curious. She told herself she would never actually ask for help from a human. But when she saw Marcus Cole walking through the outpost market, she found her feet carrying her toward him before her mind could stop them. He recognized her immediately. His eyes widened just slightly, then returned to normal. He was good at hiding his reactions. "Kethliera," he said, "this is unexpected." "I need to speak with you," she said, "alone." They found a quiet corner in a small cafe. The other customers, mostly humans and a few Morvathi traders, paid them no attention. To them, the sight of a Kethvari noble talking to a human was strange but not worth investigating. Kethliera did not know how to begin. For several minutes, she simply sat there, turning her cup of untouched tea around and around in her hands. "Something is wrong with your health," Marcus said finally. It was not a question. She looked up sharply. "How did you know?" "I study alien biology. It is my life's work. I can see the signs that others miss. Your skin color is slightly off. You favor your left side when you walk, probably because of pain in your right leg. Your hands shake when you think no one is watching." Kethliera felt exposed. She had spent so long hiding her condition that having someone see through her masks was terrifying. "If you tell anyone—" "I will not tell anyone," Marcus said. "Whatever you say to me stays between us. I promise you that." She wanted to believe him. She needed to believe someone. "There is a condition among my people," she said slowly. "We do not speak of it. We pretend it does not exist. It is called the Fade. It affects the noble bloodlines. It kills us slowly from the inside." Marcus listened without interrupting. His face showed no judgment, no disgust, only attention. "I have it," Kethliera continued. "I will die within 2 years. I have accepted this, but my daughter—" Her voice broke. She had to stop and breathe before she could continue. "My daughter has been tested. She carries the same markers. She is 8 years old and she has been given a death sentence." "What happens to children who test positive?" Marcus asked quietly. Kethliera could not meet his eyes. "They are disposed of, quietly, before they can breed weakness into the bloodlines, before anyone can learn that the sacred blood is impure." Marcus was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was careful. "And you are asking me if human medicine might be able to help?" "I am asking if there is any hope at all, any possibility. I have tried everything my people can offer. There is nothing. But you humans approach problems differently. You do not accept that some things cannot be changed. Letting us examine Kethvari blood would be forbidden. Your people would never allow it." "I know. If anyone found out, you would be executed. Your daughter would be killed." "I know. Then why are you here?" Kethliera finally looked at him. Her black eyes were bright with tears she refused to let fall. "Because I am her mother. Because I would die 1,000 deaths to give her a chance at life. Because I have nothing left to lose except her." Marcus studied her for a long time. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small data chip. "There is a research station 3 days from here. It is not on any official maps. The people who work there are the best in their fields. If you bring your daughter there, we can examine her. We can try to understand what is happening in her blood. I cannot promise we will find an answer, but I can promise we will try." Kethliera took the chip. Her hands were shaking. "Why would you help me?" she asked. "My grandmother insulted your entire species. She called you genetic refuse." Marcus smiled slightly. It was a sad smile, but not an unkind one. "Your grandmother is not you, And your daughter is not your grandmother. I became a scientist because I believe in helping those who suffer, no matter who they are or where they come from. If there is even a small chance I can save a child's life, I will take that chance. You could be killed for this. If the Kethvari learn that a human has seen our blood, then I suppose we had better make sure they do not learn. Kethliera stood up. She felt something she had not felt in 3 years, something she had thought was dead inside her forever. Hoping. 3 days, she said, I will be there. She left the cafe and walked back to her ship. Her guards asked where she had been. She told them she had been looking at human crafts in the market, curious about their primitive technology. They believed her. Why would they not? The idea of a Kethvari noble actually seeking help from humans was too absurd to consider. That night, she held her daughter close and whispered a promise into her sleeping ear. I will save you, no matter what it takes. No matter what rules I have to break, I will save you. In her palace on the Kethvari homeworld, Matriarch Selvan felt a strange unease. Something had changed in the flow of things. Something was happening that she could not see. She called for her spy masters and ordered them to watch her granddaughter more closely. But by the time they understood what Kethliera was doing, it would be too late to stop her. The research station did not look like much from the outside. It was hidden inside an asteroid, with only a small docking port visible on the surface. Ships passed by it every day without knowing it was there. That was exactly how the people inside wanted it. Kethliera had told her guards that she needed time alone to meditate. She had taken a small personal shuttle, the kind that did not require escorts. She had flown through 3 different systems, changing her course each time to make sure no one was following her. And now she was here, carrying her sleeping daughter in her arms, about to do something that could destroy everything she had ever known. Marcus Cole met her at the docking port. He was not alone. Behind him stood a woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. This is Dr. Sarah Chen, Marcus said. She is the best geneticist humanity has ever produced. If anyone can help your daughter, she can. Dr. Chen looked at the small Kethvari child in Kethliera's arms. Her expression softened slightly. She is beautiful, Dr. Chen said. What is her name? Valith. Bring her inside. We have prepared a room for her. She will be comfortable. The inside of the station was clean and bright. There were humans everywhere, working at screens and equipment that Kethliera did not recognize. They all stopped and stared when she walked past, a Kethvari noble in a human research station. It was probably the strangest thing any of them had ever seen. Valith woke up as they reached the medical area. She looked around with wide eyes. Mother, where are we? Somewhere safe. These people are going to help you. They look strange. Are they humans? Yes, dear. Valith studied Marcus with the direct curiosity of a child. You are very tall for a human, and your skin is so dark. It is nice, like warm wood. Marcus laughed. It was a real laugh free of mockery or cruelty. Thank you, your skin is nice too, like moonlight. Valith smiled. It was the first time she had smiled in weeks. The examinations took several hours. Dr. Chen and her team took samples of blood, tissue, and other materials. They scanned Valith with machines that hummed and beeped. They asked questions about her symptoms, her family history, her diet, everything. Kethliera stayed with her daughter the entire time, holding her hand, telling her stories to keep her calm. She watched the human scientists work and saw something that surprised her. They were excited, not because a Kethvari was suffering, but because they had a problem to solve, a puzzle to figure out. They genuinely wanted to help. That night, after Valith was asleep in the room they had prepared for her, Dr. Chen called Kethliera and Marcus to her office. I have good news and bad news, Dr. Chen said. Which do you want first? The bad news, Kethliera said. She had been prepared for bad news her entire life. The fade is worse than you know. It is not just a disease. It is a systematic collapse of your entire genetic structure. Your people have been breeding for purity for so long that your DNA has lost the ability to repair itself. Every generation, the problem gets worse. Even HFY who do not show symptoms are carrying damage that will appear in their children or grandchildren. HFY felt the floor shift beneath her feet. You are saying my entire species is dying? Slowly, yes, over thousands of years. You have traded genetic diversity for genetic purity. The result is beautiful and powerful, but it is also fragile. Your bodies can do amazing things, but they cannot adapt. They cannot change. They cannot fix themselves when something goes wrong. And the good news. Dr. Chen smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. The good news is that there may be a solution. Your DNA is remarkable. It has features that human scientists have never seen before. The capacity for your mental abilities, your long lives, your resistance to radiation, it is all written in your genes. The problem is that those same genes have become too rigid, too perfect. They need something to shake them up, to give them flexibility again. What are you suggesting? A hybridization procedure. We introduce carefully selected human genetic sequences into your daughter's DNA, not to replace what makes her HFY, but to stabilize it, to give her cells the tools they need to repair themselves. HFY did not understand all the science, but she understood the basic idea. You want to mix human blood with HFY blood. In a very controlled, very precise way, yes. That is the greatest crime in our culture. My people would rather die than allow such contamination. I know, but your people are dying anyway. This might save them. HFY thought about her grandmother. She thought about 10,000 years of tradition, of purity, of pride. She thought about all the children who had been quietly disposed of because their blood was not perfect. Then she looked at the door that led to the room where her daughter was sleeping. Do it, she said. Save my daughter. The procedure took 3 days to prepare and 12 hours to complete. HFY did not leave her daughter's side for any of it. She watched as the human scientists worked their strange machines. She watched as they injected tiny amounts of modified genetic material into Valeth's blood. She watched her daughter's vital signs on screens she did not fully understand. Marcus was there too. He brought HFY food that she did not eat and tea that she did not drink. He sat with her through the long hours of waiting. He did not try to fill the silence with empty words. He simply stayed. Why are you doing this? HFY asked him during one of the long, quiet periods. You have risked everything for a child you never met, for a people who have done nothing but insult you. Marcus thought about the question for a while before answering. When I was young, my sister was sick. A disease that should have been curable, but we lived in a poor area and could not afford the treatment. She died when she was 12 years old. I remember holding her hand as she took her last breath. I remember promising myself that I would become a doctor, that I would spend my life making sure no other child died from something that could be prevented. But Valeth is not your sister. She is not even your species. No, but she is a child who is suffering from something that might be prevented. That is enough for me. HFY did not know what to say to that. In her culture, you helped your own bloodline and no one else. The idea of dedicating your life to helping strangers, even strangers from other species, was completely foreign to her. But she was beginning to understand why humans had spread so quickly across the stars. It was not because they were the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced. It was because they helped each other. They worked together. They did not leave their weak behind to die. On the third day, everything changed. A warning alarm sounded through the station. Red lights began to flash. HFY warships, someone shouted. 3 of them, they have found us. HFY felt her blood turn to ice. My grandmother. She must have tracked my shuttle somehow. Marcus grabbed her arm. The procedure is almost complete. We need to buy more time. How? I will handle it. Stay with your daughter. He ran out of the medical area before she could stop him. Through the window, she could see human soldiers moving to defensive positions. She could hear the sound of weapons being powered up. The Matriarch's hunters had found them, and now everyone in this station was going to die because Kethliera had dared to hope for something better. The first explosion shook the entire station. Dust fell from the ceiling. Equipment rattled on tables. In her bed, Valith woke up crying. Kethliera rushed to her daughter and held her close. It is all right. Everything will be all right. But she knew she was lying. The Kethvari hunters were the deadliest warriors in the galaxy. They had been bred for combat for 10,000 years. Their reflexes were faster than any other species. Their minds could predict enemy movements before they happened. A few dozen human soldiers could not possibly stop them. Through the window, she could see Marcus leading a group of defenders. They had taken positions behind heavy barriers, weapons aimed at the main corridor. They looked scared but determined. The hunters came fast, silver figures moving so quickly they seemed to blur. Their weapons fired pulses of energy that cut through human bodies like they were made of paper. The first line of defenders fell in seconds. But the humans did not run. They kept fighting. They fell back to new positions and kept firing. Every time a hunter moved forward, they had to fight through a wall of bullets and energy beams. It was not enough to stop them, but it was enough to slow them down. Marcus was everywhere at once. He pulled wounded soldiers to safety. He directed fire at weak points in the hunter formation. He fought like a man who knew he was going to die, but had decided that his death would mean something. Dr. Chen appeared at the door of the medical area. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady. The procedure is complete. Valith's vital signs are stabilizing. The hybrid genes are integrating with her system. It worked. We will not know for certain until we run more tests, but early signs are very good indeed. An explosion tore through the wall of the medical area. 3 hunters stepped through the smoke, their weapons raised. Their black eyes scanned the room until they found Kethliera. "Traitor," one of them said, "you have contaminated your blood. The Matriarch demands your death." Kethliera stood up. She put herself between the hunters and her daughter's bed. "I will not let you take her. You cannot stop us. You are weak. You have the fade. You are already dead." "Then what do I have to lose?" She had never been trained for combat. She had never held a weapon in her life. But when the first hunter moved toward Valith, something inside her snapped. She grabbed a metal tray from the table beside her and swung it at the hunter's head. The impact knocked him sideways. Before the other 2 could react, she was already moving, throwing equipment at them, screaming with a fury she did not know she possessed. It was not skill. It was desperation. It was a mother's love turned into something dangerous. The hunters recovered quickly. One of them struck her across the face and she fell hard to the floor. Blood filled her mouth. But when she looked up, she saw Marcus standing in the doorway behind them. He was wounded. His left arm hung useless at his side. Blood covered half of his face. But in his right hand, he held a weapon that glowed with strange energy. "Get away from them," he said. The hunters turned. One of them laughed. "A human? You think a human can challenge us?" Marcus fired. The weapon released a beam of light so bright that Kethliera had to look away. When she could see again, one of the hunters was on the ground, not moving. The other 2 attacked. Marcus fought them both at once, using his weapon as a club when it stopped firing. He was slower than them, weaker than them, less skilled than them. But he would not fall. Every time they knocked him down, he got back up. Every time they wounded him, he kept fighting. Kethliera watched in amazement. This was what humans were capable of. Not perfection, not superiority, just an absolute refusal to give up. One of the hunters finally drove a blade through Marcus's chest. He fell to his knees, blood pouring from the wound. But even then, he grabbed the hunter's arm and held it, stopping the killing blow from reaching Kethliera. "Run," he whispered. Before the hunter could finish him, a new sound filled the station. A ship, a big one, and from the communications system, a voice that Kethliera never expected to hear. "This is Kethsera, daughter of the Matriarch. All hunters stand down immediately." Kethliera's aunt, the one whose hands had been shaking at the summit, the one who had looked so afraid. The hunters hesitated. Kethsera was not their commander. But she was of the royal blood. Disobeying her was almost as dangerous as disobeying the matriarch herself. "I said stand down. I am invoking the right of blood challenge. Any hunter who harms these people will answer to me personally." The right of blood challenge, an ancient law that allowed members of the royal family to protect those they chose. It had not been used in centuries, but it was still law. The hunters lowered their weapons. They did not look happy, but they did not continue their attack. Kethsera's ship docked with the damaged station. She came aboard with a dozen of her own guards, loyal to her personally. When she entered the medical area, her black eyes took in the scene. The damaged walls, the wounded humans, the dying man on the floor, and her niece standing over a child's bed with blood on her face and fire in her eyes. "I have been watching you," Kethsera said quietly. "Since the summit, I suspected you carried the Fade. I suspected you would eventually do something desperate. I did not expect this." "Are you here to arrest me?" Kethliera asked. "I am here because I carry the Fade too, and so do my daughters, and so do dozens of other nobles who hide their condition in shame." Kethsera looked at the child on the bed. "If what these humans have done actually works, you have not committed a crime. You have found a way to save our people." More ships arrived. Not hunters this time, but other Kethvari nobles. Word had spread somehow. The secret network of those who carried the Fade had been activated. They had all come to see if the impossible was really true. Dr. Chen showed them the data. She explained the procedure in terms they could understand. She showed them Valith's vital signs, how they had changed from dying to stable. The Kethvari nobles listened in silence. Some of them wept. Some of them simply stared as if they could not believe what they were seeing. And then, like a cold wind blowing through the station, the matriarch arrived. Selvan Kethnora stepped off her ship with murder in her ancient eyes. She looked at the assembled nobles, at the human scientists, at her granddaughter standing defiant with blood still wet on her face. "What have you done?" the matriarch said. Her voice was quiet, which made it more terrifying than any shout. "I saved my daughter," Kethliera said. "I saved her from a death sentence that our own people placed on her. I saved her from 10,000 years of pride and lies. You have contaminated the sacred blood. You have mixed our perfection with human filth. Your child is an abomination." "My child is alive, and she will live a long, healthy life, something no pure-blooded Kethvari with the Fade has ever done." The matriarch raised her hand. Energy gathered around her fingers. She was going to kill them herself. But she never got the chance. One by one, the other nobles stepped forward. They stood between the matriarch and her targets, daughters and granddaughters, cousins and nieces, all of them sick, all of them hiding, all of them tired of watching their children die. "Move aside," the matriarch commanded. No one moved. Kethsera stepped to the front of the group. "We will not let you destroy what might save us all. The Fade is killing our people, Mother. You know this. You have always known this. You just refuse to admit that our perfect blood might not be so perfect after all." For the first time in her 800 years of life, Matriarch Selvan looked uncertain. She looked around at the faces of her own family, united against her. She saw what she had never allowed herself to see before. An empire built on lies was starting to crumble. Behind her, Dr. Chen was working frantically to save Marcus's life. He had lost too much blood. His heart had stopped twice already, but she would not give up. She would not let him die. Because that was what humans did. They fought for each other, even when the battle seemed impossible, even when everyone expected them to lose. They fought anyway. 5 years later, the galaxy was a different place. The Kethvari Empire had split in two. The old matriarch still ruled a handful of systems, surrounded by those who clung to the ancient ways. They called themselves the Pure. They watched their children die of the Fade and told themselves it was honorable. Their numbers grew smaller every year. The rest of the empire had chosen a different path. They called themselves the Kethvara, which meant the renewed in the old language. They were led by a council of reformers, with Kethliira and Kethsera at the head. They had opened their doors to human scientists and doctors. They had allowed the hybrid procedure to be performed on any who wanted it. The children of the Kethvara were something new. They had the silver skin and black eyes of their ancestors. They had the long lives and the mental abilities, but they also had something else, a resilience that pure Kethvari had never possessed, an ability to adapt and change and grow. They did not carry the Fade. They would not pass it to their children. They were not pure, they were something better, they were alive. Valith stood before the Galactic Council on her 13th birthday. She was tall for her age, with the grace of her Kethvari blood and something warmer in her eyes. She had been chosen to speak for the Kethvara at this summit, the same summit where her great-grandmother had once humiliated humanity. The Great Hall of Veranik Station was just as massive as it had always been. The same black walls, the same impossible ceiling, but the people gathered there looked at the Kethvara representatives differently now, not with fear or submission, with curiosity, with hope, with respect. 5 years ago, Valith said, her voice clear and strong, my great-grandmother stood in this very hall and called humanity genetic refuse. She said they were too short-lived to matter, too fragile to contribute, too chaotic to belong among the stars. She paused and looked across the assembled species. She was wrong. A murmur passed through the crowd. The Morvathi ambassador leaned forward with interest. The Silith in their water tanks rippled with attention. The Kethvari spent 10,000 years trying to perfect ourselves. We removed everything we considered weak. We bred only the strongest, the most pure, the most refined. And do you know what we discovered? Perfection is a dead end. When you remove all weakness, you also remove the ability to change, to adapt, to survive when the universe throws something unexpected at you. She gestured toward the human delegation. Humanity taught us something our ancestors never understood. Strength does not come from purity. It comes from diversity, from the willingness to try new things, to make mistakes, to learn and grow. A chain made of identical links will break at the first weak point. A rope woven from many different threads can bend without breaking. The old matriarch was watching the broadcast from her palace on the pure homeworld. She sat alone in her cold throne room, surrounded by empty seats where her family had once sat. Most of them had left to join the Kethvara. The ones who remained were dying, one by one, of the fade she still refused to acknowledge. She watched her great-great-granddaughter speak words that would have been unthinkable a generation ago. She watched the representatives of 100 species listen with respect instead of contempt. And for the first time in her ancient life, she began to wonder if she had been wrong about everything. In the human section of the council hall, Marcus Cole watched Valith with quiet pride. He was older now. His hair had gone completely gray. The scars from that battle 5 years ago had never fully healed. He walked with a limp and could not raise his left arm above his shoulder. But he was alive. Dr. Chen had refused to let him die that day. She had worked for 14 hours straight, replacing blood and repairing damage that should have been fatal. When he finally woke up, the first thing he saw was Kethliira sitting beside his bed, holding his hand. "You almost died for my daughter," she had said, "a child you had never met." "I told you why," he had replied, his voice barely a whisper. "I know, but I wanted to tell you something." She had squeezed his hand gently. "In my culture, when someone saves your child's life, they become part of your family. They are considered a second parent with all the rights and responsibilities that come with it. If you accept, Valeth will call you father." Marcus had not known what to say. He had spent his whole life dedicated to helping others. He had never expected to have a family of his own. "I accept," he had said. Now, 5 years later, he watched his daughter address the galaxy. He saw how she combined the best of both their peoples. The grace and intelligence of the HFY, the warmth and determination of humanity. She was proof that something beautiful could grow when different peoples learned to trust each other. Valeth finished her speech and stepped down from the podium. The hall erupted in applause from a dozen different species. She smiled, bowed gracefully, and then did something that made the old matriarch choke on her breath. She walked across the entire council chamber, past ambassadors and dignitaries and heads of state, and embraced Marcus Cole in front of everyone. "Thank you, Father," she said, "for everything." The old matriarch turned off the broadcast. She could not watch anymore. The world she had known was dying. The empire she had built on pride and purity was crumbling, and the species she had despised most had not conquered her people through war or deception. They had done something far more devastating. They had helped. In her cold palace, surrounded by memories of a dying age, Selvan Kethnora finally began to write. Not orders or decrees or condemnations. Something else. Something she had never imagined she would write. A confession. "We thought them beneath us," she wrote. "We thought their short lives made them desperate. We thought their genetic chaos made them weak. We were wrong." She paused, her pen hovering over the paper. Their chaos was possibility. Their desperation was hope. And hope, it turns out, is the most dangerous thing in the universe. She continued writing through the night. She wrote about the Fade and how her family had hidden it for centuries. She wrote about the children who had been killed to keep the bloodlines pure. She wrote about her own fear and pride and the mistakes she had made. When she finished, she sealed the document and gave it to her last remaining servant. "Send this to my great-great-granddaughter," she said. "Tell her it is my gift to her, my final acknowledgement of what I could never admit while I still ruled." The servant hesitated. "What shall I tell her it is, matriarch?" The old woman looked out her window at the stars. Somewhere out there, a new generation was being born. Half HFY, half human in their genes, better than either parent alone. "Tell her it is an apology," she said, "from an old fool who finally learned what humanity has known all along." The servant waited, but the matriarch said nothing more. "What is that, matriarch? What have they known?" Selvan closed her eyes. "That there is no such thing as perfect blood. There is only blood that continues and blood that ends. And sometimes, to continue, you must be willing to change." She sat alone in her throne room as the servant left to deliver her message. The palace was silent. The empire was fatting. But somewhere, a child was laughing. A mother was smiling. A father who had once been a stranger was watching his daughter change the galaxy. And that, in the end, was enough. The HFY had spent 10,000 years learning how to be perfect. Humanity had taught them something more important: how to survive.